So the application is taking shape, and it's looking really nice in my opinion, even though we haven't written a single line of CSS yet, because of these beautiful default styles Ionic gives us. And I hope you already get a feeling for how easy it is to compose a rich user interface with nice looking and, as you will see, quite powerful and feature-rich components with little effort. I'm explaining a lot here, but code-wise we haven't written that much code, and we only worked in HTML. So we got our card with the two items here. Now I also want to have a button to submit my inputs here. We used the button before. We can add an ion button element here. And on that button, I want to have a text of add expense, but I'll actually add two buttons. So I'll duplicate this because I also want to have a clear button here. Now, if we save it just like this without any further configuration, then if we reload the app, we'll get two buttons that look like this. Not ugly, but maybe you also want to tweak this and have a different look. For example, I want my clear button here to have a red color and this outlined look where it doesn't have a background color but only a border and a text color. And I also want to have an icon in there, an icon that kind of signals that this cancels the input and clears the fields. And on the expense button, I want to have an icon too, a plus icon. And yeah, I want to leave the style as it is otherwise. Now, for this, let's start with the clear button. We can set the fill mode to outline. Alternative values can, of course, be found in the official docs, as for all components. There, if you explore the ion button, you set that the fill mode can be set to clear, to have neither a background nor a border, to outline, to have just a border, or to solid, to have a background color. So here I'm going with outline. And regarding the color, we get these 9 default colors, primary, tertiary, and so on. I can set this to danger here, which is one of the default colors, which will apply my default danger color, which turns out by default to be red. And of course you could change that, but for now let's go with the default. And if we therefore reload this, we have this look now. And please note that on an Android device up here, you need to reload if you switch to it for the first time, we actually also get this nice ripple effect. Super. Now what about the icons? Now, there is a built-in ion icon component. Here you go. Now, actually, this will redirect you to a brand new page because you could add this to any app as a separate package, but the Ionic package we're importing from the CDN actually has it included already, so no need for an extra import. It's in here. And we simply throw our icon into our button if you want to use it there or wherever you want to use it in your app. So I can add my ion icon in here, just like this, right in front of the clear word. Now, such an icon takes a name attribute, and the name in turn can be found from this ionicons.com page. Now, if you search for clear here, that doesn't look good, but what about cancel or delete? Well, what about this cross? Now, if we click on the cross here, you see the full markup down there, and you see that name here is actually close. So let's go back and let's enter close here as an icon name. Now with that ion icon added and the file saved, once you reload the page, you will see your icon here. And this doesn't look too bad. But you can even improve the look a little bit by clearly telling the icon where it should go into the button. And you can do this with a concept called slots. Now, slots are a default web component concept, which basically allows web components to reserve certain places in their built-in markup where certain content should be rendered or can be targeted to be rendered. And as always, if there are slots, you can learn about them in the official docs. So here in the button docs here, you find examples for buttons with icons and different slots they target. So with that information, here on our icon, you can add a slot of start, for example. And if you do that, if you add that slot start, you see the button is now, the icon is now a little bit further on the left. We have more spacing between the icon and the text. It looks a bit cleaner now. Now, feel free to add an icon to add expense on your own now. Find a fitting icon here on the Ionicons page. it should be an icon that kind of signals that we can add something and then try adding it to that button. We'll of course also do it together, but here's your chance to pause the video and try it on your own. Were you successful? Let's first of all find a fitting icon, shall we? So here on Ionicons, if I search for add, what about this plus button? Of course, if you used a different one, that's fine too. Now here we find the code for that, and we can just copy that from down there. And then go back to our source code, and next to add expense, I will add my icon with the add button, or with the add look. Now just as for the close button, I'll assign it to my start slot to adjust the spacing and generally make sure that the button looks good. So with this added, if we now reload, here is the plus button. So these are the buttons added. What about some spacing around the buttons? And maybe we want to have them aligned to the right actually. How could this be achieved?